Welcome, welcome, welcome to Wealth Strategies Unleashed. I'm Robert Gilliland, and
I'm Mike Alexander.
well, as we're getting here into this time of year, we're having a lot of conversations about education, whether that is grandkids going to college or new grandkids or people getting married. And really what a lot of people want to know, what are some strategies and what's the best way to pay for college? So I thought what we'd maybe do today is, knowing that I've got 2 out of college, about to have 3 out of college, and 1 about to go into college. Let's talk about the types of accounts and how do you go through to fund and pay for college.
You bet. Well, first of all, I'm right there with you, as you know, Robert. I've got 2 that are out of school and 1 that's getting ready to head to school, and so nothing is more near and dear than trying to get them through the educational process.
But the thing is that the real key is not necessarily getting them through; it's getting them off the payroll. That's the biggest thing.
That is 100% true. It's almost like getting a pay raise, right, Robert? So a couple of things. There's obviously a variety of ways. I think early on, for a lot of parents who are trying to and grandparents who are trying to fund education, I think kind of the original way of doing that was just to set aside money. But as you know, tuition's pretty darn expensive. It's expensive if your kid's going to, everything from private elementary all the way through high school, and not to even mention college, and certainly not when you get to like private institutions. So I think early on, we had these Coverdale savings type accounts.
Yeah, the old education IRA.
Correct, and you could put money into those, but the biggest problem is that you could only put about $2,000 a year into those. So there's some restrictions in terms of how much you could put in. Plus there were some income limitations. So if you're single, you could only make $95,000. I believe the number was closer to like $190,000 for a married couple. And so there were just a lot of people that really didn't qualify to be able to use those fully and to really build up enough to cover the cost.
We don't even talk to clients about those old education IRAs. The reality is the cost of college is going up by about 5% per year on average. But this is something that's really interesting. My experience with clients, as well as personally, is that it doesn't matter if that child's going to school at LSU, go Tigers, or Stephen F. Austin, Axum Jacks, or Texas Tech. Right? The cost.
You forgot Reckham.
Oh, right. Who would know about that? The Reckham. What I found is that the cost, without regard to where they go, in-state, out-of-state, especially when you're talking about Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, the cost ends up, not counting private, ends up roughly being about the same. Today, that cost is somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 per school year. At $2,000, you're not going to be able to get there. Now, one good thing about the Coverdale is that if you have money inside there, the money comes out. If it's qualified education expense, tax-free, and it can also be used for private kindergarten or private high school, K through 12.
Right.
Also, so that might be a choice. We do have a lot of people, whether it's parents or grandparents, aunts and uncles, who say they want to open up an account and put it in the kid's name, and that's the UTMA account, right?
Yes. So the Uniform Trust to Minors, or in the old way it used to be called Uniform Gift to Minors, or UGMA or UTMA type accounts. You could obviously gift money to a child. A couple of things as it relates to those is that that money actually became the property of the child, and so whether or not they decided to go to college or complete an education or not, it actually becomes theirs at the age of majority. So there are definitely some downsides to that. The other aspects of it just had to do with the tax component of it, where the first $1,250 worth of income was actually taxed at the child's rate, and then after that, you started getting taxed at the adult's rate,
Right.
shortly thereafter. I know they've raised the limits on that to a certain degree, but certainly also one that didn't have maybe the greatest degree of flexibility in terms of actually doing the gift.
Yeah, so the UTMA accounts, or the actually going and giving the money to the kid, or child, I should say, we should be correct here, right? To give money to the minor, the thing that people really have to make sure that they understand is that at age 21 in the state of Texas, that child can walk in and say, hey, I know that I have this account and I want this money out of here because I want to go buy this new fast car, or I want to go on this vacation. And really the only thing that we can do is say, please have a seat. We'll see how we can get this check processed for you. That's their money, right? A lot of times, if you're saving for college, that's not the route that you want to go. And you're going to have tax implications when you go to take it, not just take it out, but you're going to have ongoing tax implications. But if that means you're going to end up having to sell to realize a gain, there's going to be taxes, which is going to be taxed. Part of it's tax-free, right? Mm-hmm. That first $1,200, would you say $1,250?
Right.
The next $1,250 is taxed at theirs, and then the rest is at the parents or grandparents, whoever is the custodian. That's the one who has control until age 21. So, I mean, those aren't necessarily the most efficient.
No, for a while it was kind of, it was the only game in town, if you will, and a lot of times these days if it becomes the child's asset at the age of 18, or a lot of students aren't even attending education; they're already 18 years old, so the money's technically it would already be theirs anyway. For a lot of kids that are going on to secondary education as well.
Yeah, and so the thing that we found is that the most efficient way for funding college is the 529 plan. Most people are kind of familiar with them, but Secure Act 2.0 gave us a lot more things that you can do. The 529 plan, just so that everyone knows and understands, is that the money goes in, and as it grows, there's no tax deduction for it going in. And as the money grows, what ends up happening is when you go to take it out for a qualified education expense, which could be room, board, computers, travel, study abroad, tuition, fees, books.
I can't use that for transportation, can I, Robert?
If it's out of state, you can.
Oh, it is.
Oh,
okay.
yeah, you can use it. Yes, you can. Can't do it for gas money, and you can't do it.
You can't buy a car.
Yeah, I know you cannot go buy a car. But you can, with the 529 plan, that money when it comes out, there are no taxes. So if you think about it, that you have money sitting inside of this account, you put $1,000 in. By the time when the baby's born, by the time they go to college, that $1,000 is worth, let's call it $8,000. Take that $8,000 out, there's zero tax that's due.
Now, what if that child decides not to go to college?
Now, this is the thing, or they get a full ride scholarship.
Correct.
Right. So, the thing about the 529 plan is that money comes out of your estate. There are two individuals that are important. One is the participant, and the other is the beneficiary. The participant is, if I have a 529 plan for my child, I'm the participant. And then the beneficiary of the 529 plan is where that money comes out. And as long as I'm taking money out for a qualified education expense, all's good. If this child doesn't go to college or gets a full ride scholarship, then you're kind of stuck. You can transfer change the beneficiary to another child, or you could leave it in that child's name and change the beneficiary to a grandchild, their grandchild's name. Or their child's name, your grandchild. That makes sense? So I start it for my child. They get a full ride scholarship. Don't really use any of that money. I can then, once they have children, I could then change it to their kids as the beneficiary. And that way, that's a way to kind of create a legacy, something that would last for a really long time and be worth a lot of money that's inside there. But the Secure Act 2.0 also allowed for you to take, as long as the 529 plan is in existence for 15 years, will allow for you to take up to the contribution limit and convert that over into a Roth IRA every year up to a maximum of $35,000. So let's just say I've got $35,000 sitting in my 529 plan and my child's got a full ride scholarship. The current limit to Roth IRA contributions is $7,000. For the next 5 years, I could take $7,000 and convert that into a Roth for that child. All right, so now that child, now they got a $35,000 Roth that's going to grow. When that money comes out, it's going to be tax-free, and there's no tax that's on there.
Yeah, and so that's something that's relatively new, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Secure
right?
Act 2.0
Right,
allowed for that to happen inside there. Now, the other thing that you can do with that, if there's extra money, is you can use up to a lifetime limit of $10,000 to pay off student loans. That's right. So if a student ended up having more, one of your children ended up needing loans because they went to medical school, as an example, you could take up to $10,000 out of their 529 plan to fund that. You can do that transfer to another beneficiary, and if you elect to take it out yourself, you can do that, but you're going to be subject to ordinary income and a 10% penalty on that.
Right. So just
you can
similar to an IRA.
That's
if you were
right.
taking a premature withdrawal as well. That's great.
So that's the 529 plan is the one that we see most people use most often. There's limitations inside there. We have a lot of clients who say, hey, look, I want to start saving money because I've got a daughter and there's a wedding coming up, or there's a wedding, they're eventually going to get married. I want to have a little bit of money or have money for them to get set up in life, whether that's just buy their first house or down payment for a car. If you're looking for things other than just education, the UTMA account is probably the best if your intent is for that money to be there. But if we're talking just about college, 529 plan is the best one for that, because the 529 plan will allow for you to buy a computer, will allow for you to buy books, it will allow for you to buy food and pay rent and those kind of things. So 529 plan ends up being the absolute best one for you to go.
For sure. Certainly offers the most flexibility. And certainly the greatest ability to contribute to it, especially when you think about, again, the cost of of
the
attending
other thing that I forgot the Secure Act 2.0 did is it allows for you to take up to $10,000 per year and and apply that to private school K through 12.
Right.
So there's a lot of people who want to send their kids to private school, and so that new provision inside the 529 plan is a good one that allows to help pay for that, and that's a tax-free transaction too.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's part of our conversation here, but certainly there are a lot of grandparents, for example, that utilize this as an estate planning tool. Is that
yeah, because that money comes out of your estate.
Right.
And so, I think there's a lot of choices, a lot of places that you can go. Normally, you've got two that have graduated from college and one about to. What sort of wisdom would you impart on people, especially when they're thinking about how do I get money to put money away for college? What would be the?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would advise anyone to do is start early. The earlier that you can start, the better. Again, remember in the cases of these 529 plans, for example, the money is growing tax deferred until you use it, and then it will come out tax free if it's utilized for qualified educational expenses. I think that makes a lot of sense. And just like any other investment activity, the earlier you start, the better. So you can almost think of it as like is the same way that you would think about retirement. Just recognizing that when a child is born, it's probably going to be 17 or 18 years before they attend college, and it may only be 5 or 6 years before they start to attend, K through 12, for example. But the earlier that you can start, the better.
Yeah, I think the one thing when you're thinking about, the one thing that I would say about that is, I think that one risk that you have is overfunding that, and that ends up being at the detriment of other places, possibly at the detriment of other places to go to save. So generally speaking, especially when you have that little one, the way that I tell people that I like to think about is that, hey, let's think about funding college at an 85% level. Because generally speaking, those 4 or 5 years that they're going through, if we know what our total cost of college is going to be, a lot of times the cash flow, because you're no longer paying a lot of the other stuff, that cash flow is pretty easy to make up that remaining 15%. And that way you're not overfunding that.
Right.
Because you want to have as many choices. And sometimes that's an easier way to go through and do it. But I think that the most important thing on that is to go and start funding as quick as possible for 529.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more.
Well, Mike, thanks. I think it's another great podcast. Thanks to everyone for joining us for Wealth Strategies Unleashed with Concenture Wealth Management. We'll see you next Monday.
See you next time.